All right, in this video, we are going to work through problem 4.142 from our book. It says living arrangements. As reported by the U.S. Census Bureau in America's Families and Living Arrangements, the living arrangement by age of U.S. citizens 15 years of age or older are as shown in the following joint probability distribution. All right, so across the top, we have the columns alone, with spouse, and with others for living arrangement. And then the rows are the ages breakdown. All right, it says a U.S. citizen 15 years of age or older is selected at random. Determine the probability that the person selected lives with a spouse. So part A, probability lives with a spouse. All right, so with spouse is L2 in this, so I'm going to just use L2. All right, and so the probability of L2, right, this is a probability distribution, so this is different in the sense that we don't have frequencies, right, or counts, we have probabilities. So the probability that somebody randomly selected, right, 15 years of age or older, lives with a spouse is 0.5, right? That's one of the marginal probabilities. So we could just read that off. Okay. All right, next part is part B. In part B, it says, what's the probability that they're over 64? So that's A4 over here. So I'm just going to write probability of A4. And again, that is going to be a marginal probability, right? So all the way over here, 0.158. And that is the a probability, right? A marginal probability. So that's all we have to do is write that down. All right, part C. All right, part C, they want to know what is the probability that the person selected lives with a spouse and is over 64. So lives with a spouse is L2, and over 64 is A4, right? And so that is a joint probability. And so it's just going to be the intersection of the column L2, right, with spouse, and over 64, right, which is 0.088. Okay. All right, part D. And what is the probability that the person lives with the spouse? So that's L2. Given that the person is over 64, so that's A4. Okay, and so this time, what we need to do, right, is use the conditional probability formula, right? This is a conditional probability, right? So using the conditional probability formula, we get that is the probability of L2 and A4. Actually, probably to be consistent, although it doesn't really matter, write it exactly the way the formula says, right, in our book. So that would be the probability of A4 and L2, and divided by the probability of A4. So I'm using the conditional probability formula there. And these things we've already calculated, right? We know the probability of L2, A4 and L2 is the same as the probability of L2 and A4. It's just what they have in common. We've already calculated that out, and we know that it's 0.088. All right, and we know that the probability of A4 is 0.158. Okay, and so now all we need to do is to calculate that out. So 0.088 divided by 0.158, that gives us 0.557 to 3 decimal places. All right. All right, next up is part E. Part E, they want to know what is the probability that the person is over 64, so that's A4, given that the person lives with a spouse. So lives with a spouse is L2. So again, that is a conditional probability, right? We would use the conditional probability formula. That's going to be the probability of L2 and A4 divided by the probability of L2. Okay. And so doing that, we get probability of L2 and A4, right? We've already calculated that out. It's 0.88. Oh, sorry. 0.088 divided by the probability of L2, which we know is 0.5. All right, and so just calculate that out. And we get 0.176 on that conditional probability. All right, and that is it on this problem.